Hello everyone, welcome back to Allcarnews, and we have a highly anticipated new vehicle here this week, the all new and first ever Subaru Forester hybrid. And I love how you don't really ever know if this vehicle is a hybrid unless you see the hybrid badge on the side with the two boxer pistons on it. We have a cool two-tone green paint finish on this one as well. But let's go take this thing on a drive, see what this hybrid powertrain is like. And let me tell you something, I think this thing really is the Subaru Forester perfected in a sense. Okay everyone, welcome to the interior of the Subaru Forester hybrid. We have the Touring Forester here, and of course not much is very different actually as on first sight than a typical Forester Touring like we had last year for review. Hybrid badge though on our floor mats. Let's turn the vehicle on and you'll hear it's silent, no engine start-stop sound, and you'll notice we have an all-new, first ever in the United States, digital cluster on this Subaru Forester hybrid here. Typical Subaru infotainment system over here as well. But let's go take this vehicle out on a drive because this thing's actually quite nice. Before we get started, of course, like I mentioned, we have this all-new digital cluster which we'll explore out on the road. We have an EV mode button right here, which is new, obviously, but everything else is pretty much the same. You have your gear selector as well for your transmission, and everything else looks like pretty much a typical Subaru Forester. So we'll pop it into drive and let's head off quietly, at least in this particular vehicle. So this powertrain is very unique. There is not much like it honestly in this segment at all. As we know, it borrows electric motors and a hybrid battery, very similarly derived from the Toyota supply chain lineup, though unlike Toyota's partnership with Mazda's CX-50, which essentially just takes the entire powertrain from the Toyota RAV4 hybrid and shoves it into the Mazda chassis on the CX-50, Subaru was like, we are not doing that. Instead, they have developed the new Subaru hybrid powertrain system, and it is totally different than those systems. Those systems have a third electric motor in the rear wheels, which powers the rear wheels for all-wheel drive. There's no drive shaft going to the rear wheels in those vehicles, which includes the RAV4 hybrid and even the CX-50 hybrid. Subaru did not like that concept, as you know, they're famous for their symmetrical all-wheel drive system. So they decided to keep the boxer engines. We still have a boxer engine under the hood up front. It's making a little less power, though sandwiched in between the boxer engine and the continuously variable transmission, we have two electric motors. One is for power, another is a sort of like a traction motor to stop the engine, as well as to provide regen stuff. And then that goes through the CVT in the transfer case area, and then it's sending power to all four wheels in that style. So this has a mechanical traditional Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive system format there. So a lot of the motors are sandwiched in between the transmission and the engine, so you still have true full all-wheel drive capability. So Subaru has a very unique little setup they've devised here on this new Forester hybrid. I like it a lot. Compared to the regular Forester, we're also getting additional sound deadening material in this vehicle, though otherwise around town here it drives pretty much the same. They did change the brakes and the suspension though for this hybrid. So particularly with the brakes, hybrids obviously have regenerative braking built into it just a little bit, and so they've kind of retuned the brakes, and they're incredibly responsive actually. Honestly, they like them a little bit more than the CX-50's brakes. The CX-50 hybrid we just drove, I think they work really good in this particular application. A little bit touchy sometimes, but otherwise really good. Now we have around 300-ish pounds more on this vehicle versus the regular Forester with all the hybrid system and the batteries. So the suspension has been mild retuned, but as you can see, we are driving over steel plates right now, and it's still just as soft and compliant as the Forester has always been. It honestly feels like they didn't change anything, and you know what? I think that's a good thing to make the vehicle feel the same in all scenarios. We still keep the SI drive system here, so we can put it into sport or intelligent driving styles, and it really just increases the throttle response in the vehicle. Got the engine kick on there. Still a continuously variable transmission in the vehicle, as we can see. And power level wise, it is now, I guess, the most powerful Forester. You know, the Forester for a while has been a little bit stagnated, I would say, with offering just one engine choice. So this is now the second engine choice. As we used to know, it used to have a turbocharged option, which I really think they should bring back. But instead, now we have this hybrid option to kind of expand the Forester's engine lineup, thankfully. And I think it does good. It's still not 200 horsepower. It's just almost there, but it's a little bit of a bump versus the regular Forester. And of course, you're going to get around 5-10-ish mpg more depending on your driving style. But I think the real treat here is the insane range figures you can get out of this vehicle. Subaru quotes 585 miles, and I honestly totally believe it. I got in the vehicle, it said 500 miles. I traveled about 60 miles and it still said 500 miles. So they're not wrong on that point. This thing is a range beast, and unlike a lot of other hybrids, it doesn't have a tiny fuel tank. They have a proper 16.6 gallon fuel tank on this vehicle with regular pump gas, which I think allows it to get this really great range figure. Coming to a stop here, that's a very, very smooth process. This is a incredibly seamless hybrid system. It's totally well tuned, really well developed, I have to say, from Subaru. We have auto brake hold as well in the vehicle, which I quite like, easy to access even though it is on the screen. Like I mentioned, we can pop into Force EV mode. Doesn't really go to high speeds. You really can just kind of cruise around, maybe like your neighborhood at very, very low speeds in EV mode. Because this 1.1 kilowatt hour battery pack is really just meant for self-charging hybrid vehicles like this one is. It just charges itself via regenerative braking or the engine. You know, it gives you that ability for coasting and some smooth auto stop start capability. And that's really it. It's not meant for true pure electric driving like a plug-in hybrid or obviously full EV is. Now, of course, we have the full EyeSight safety suite on the vehicle as well. We'll get to that once we top onto the highway there. But we also are getting a digital rearview mirror, which is an option actually on this vehicle, which I think it looks quite well. And I like how the camera view button actually even works while you're in motion. So you have some view angles from your side wheels, from the front down, from the front zoomed in. I think that's pretty cool. I wish you can kind of access these cameras at a little bit of a better menu layout system, because this one's a little bit interesting. Also with Foresters, you know, visibility is probably like one of their main priorities inside of the vehicle. I'm sitting in the lowest position of the seat right now, looking straight. I have just a giant view of this road. This front windshield is genuinely massive. It is huge, which allows you to have such great visibility. You know, Subaru even places their A-pillars in a way where you're supposed to be able to see everything in your line of sight, and that view, even around you, is really, really great. So if you are always someone who loves visibility in vehicles, Subarus are probably one of the best vehicles for that feature in pretty much all of their models. Volvos would probably come around second place in my opinion for that, but that's only if you're shopping really purely based off of good sight within the vehicle. And while we're at a light here, let's have a look at the different screens you get with this all new digital cluster here. So this is the more traditional gauge view here. You hold this button down and now we're going to get a map view. So it actually pulls from both Apple Maps, Waze, and the built-in Subaru system. It took a little bit of a sec to load there, but there is Waze, which I think is really cool. Hold it again and we get a full assisted driving view as well. So we have a few different views here. You can also change the sizes of those little side icons there depending on what you have. This left one's also configurable via this little cluster here, so we can see we have our hybrid drive system right there. We can change that to audio, we can change it to navigation, turn by turn, tire pressure, engine, I think auto stop start time as well, live fuel economy, as well as your trip computer as well. We're getting 36.2 mpg over the course of this week so far I've owned the vehicle, so that's actually really good for an average. Really, really impressive Subaru. Is it the best though in class? No. The RAV4 hybrid, heck, even the CX-50 hybrid we just had are more efficient, and that's just because, you know, there's no physical drive line going to the rear wheels. The rear wheels only really turn on via that electric motor that powers them when needed, so it's mostly front wheel drive a lot of the time. So this is a little bit more of a toll on I guess MPG figures for a hybrid vehicle, but I think it's still pretty good actually. And if you're kind of doing a lot more around town stuff and you want the Subaru, I think this is actually a really good buy, because you're going to see better MPG numbers in those scenarios versus a lot more highway driving. You'll get fine MPG, but not incredible numbers. Let's head out onto the highway now and test out the incredible Subaru EyeSight system, which has gotten even better now for 2025. Okay folks, out here on the highway now, we have our eyesight system on. I'm going to deactivate it so I can show you guys how it looks when we turn on and off the system. One thing I'm actually going to note right now is that they've improved the size of the eyesight cameras. We have 2 cameras up here and they're thinner and smaller than ever before. So before there was a really chunky camera system up here. Now it's really blended into this upper portion, which I actually think is quite nice and actually aids in visibility. On the highway, it's noticeably quieter, I think, than the Forester hybrid, the Forester Touring gas, pure gas that we had last year. That's due to the added sound deadening material with the hybrid vehicle. You know, it's more quiet, so they wanted to make the interior more quiet to kind of substitute that as well, which I think is quite nice. And we're going to switch over to our assisted view gauge cluster right here, so we can see we have blind spots showing up in there, which is really nice. But turning on your full adaptive cruise and steering assist in the Subaru Forester is very, very easy to do. Right hand side of the steering wheel over here, we simply activate the system. So now it says it's ready, and the Subaru gives really clear instructions on when these systems are really ready or not. So I think that's really nice. That's clearly laid out in the gauge cluster for you right there. And all we have to do is set our speed, and that is it. Our adaptive cruise is set. Then if we would like steering assist, we can press the little steering wheel button on the bottom, and now our steering assist is active. So it really is just active lane centering at all times with steering assist. Pretty good system. It hasn't changed too much, I would say, over the course of the past few years. They've had this for a while, but it still works really well. And even just adjusting your following distance is really easily. We have a few different following distance modes we can change right there, which is really nice. It takes curves pretty well, but of course you do need to have your hands on the steering wheel at all times with force, not just touch as well. It's something to note. Some steering systems require just touch. It has a capacitive touch sensor. This one requires you have to feel a force. We also have those little LED lights up there. So there's 3 lights. So if you merge out of your lane, it'll beep and warn you. It'll let you know it's on right now, the system with those 3 green lights, which I think is quite nice, but there's no heads-up displays in the Subaru lineup really at all. So they kind of replaced that with this sort of style light system up there. And, you know, this is just, I think, going to be a really great both commuter vehicle as well as road tripping vehicle down the road, especially with this hybrid powertrain. Like I mentioned, it's quieter. It almost just improves on the Subaru Forester nameplate, I would say. It's nothing really of a detriment, and it's really not that much more expensive over a typical Subaru Forester gas is either. It's around either $1,500 to around just under $4,000 premium. But you have to remember, you're also getting a lot more standard features. You're getting the standard digital gauge cluster. You are getting that standard hybrid system, obviously, as well as standard increased noise canceling material in the vehicle. So overall, it feels like a little bit of a better experience. You're getting a little bit more power as well, and I think it's just a really smooth driving experience. It's one of my favorite hybrid powertrains I've driven in this class so far, and just in terms of its smoothness. And I'd love to be able to test out, you know, the true mechanical all-wheel drive capability of the system as well, though it is now summer, so we don't really have any harsh weather scenarios here. And you're getting all that Subaru capability. You still have the X modes. You still have like 8.7 inches of ground clearance. And you know how Subaru builds their vehicles, it's very unique. We have a longitudinal layout engine, sort of in the placement of far back wise in the engine bay as like a transverse engine. So what that really does is make the engine kind of a main component of the crash structure of this vehicle, so it really is protective for the cabin, but it's also mounted so low down in the vehicle, so low down that we have a really low center of gravity. And that's a really nice characteristics of a lot of Subaru vehicles, is their low center of gravity, which makes them handle very neutral around corners. And even with this added hybrid system in this new Forester hybrid, it doesn't really feel like there's any additional body roll or weight, which I did notice in the Mazda CX-50 hybrid. It drove a little bit more top heavy than a typical CX-50 would. This doesn't feel really different at all. So I think that's a testament to Subaru's engineering team right there. I wish they could work on this infotainment system a bit more. I go into this a lot deeper in my full turnout review. It just needs to be replaced at this point. It's a little bit slow, and things are all over the place in my opinion. But otherwise, I think this is a really, really good vehicle. I'm happy they brought a hybrid to the Forester lineup. You're getting a pretty good amount of safety systems and features and comfort options for a fully loaded price of around $43,000. I really don't think that is a bad deal as well, though this is a crowded segment. lots of competition from Honda, Mazda, Subaru, Toyota, Hyundai, even Kia as well, and the list can go on and on. I think General Motors is just about to get into the hybrid game very, very soon, so stay tuned for those. But for now, I think this is going to be a long-term, reliable vehicle that around, I would say in 5 years, you'd probably make up the cost in terms of fuel savings with this Subaru Forester hybrid. And you know what? Since Subaru owners keep their vehicles for so long, I think it makes a lot of sense. As always, guys, as we head into some completely stopped traffic, thank you for joining me on yet another video over at Allcarnews, and stay tuned for more coming soon. Cheers.